I wanted to take a look at this Legends of Lucha Libre action figure by Boss Fight Studio. Getting into some wrestling action figures, they made Juventud Guerrera. I was able to get this figure pretty cheap because I think a lot of people don't understand what it is from. Maybe they don't understand or recognize his attire here. So I wanted to open it, check it out, and kind of explain the time period we're looking at here. It does have a stats page on the back. And the one I wanted to point out was his finishing move bio. It says his finishing move of the Frog Splash and Dragon Suplex. Because this is probably earlier in the career before he had his more famous moves that he was known for later. Here we're saying debut in 1992. But let's get it opened up here, but we will go back to the carding after we get him opened up here. And if they're going to make more luchador action figures, I wanted to see how the articulation and stuff of these figures go. Right off the bat here, we got a hole in the back, probably because their body here, and maybe other ones come with capes and things for entrance, and it might have a peg that pokes in there, so be aware of that. Could be something that bothers some people, but we got good motion on the head here. You can kind of get up in there and see the neck seam, how high it goes up, so decent range of looking up and down. Of course, he still has the hair that's going to hinder a little bit there, but lift this up and see the mask is colored all up inside there even. Fairly standard, no separate ball here. This is just all one piece of the upper arm. This spins and joints at the elbow. The wrist just spins around. Not a ton, nothing in the torso either, but it does roll around in the waist spot. It just kind of has this kind of crotch piece. Get some decent split there. So pretty decent movement with the leg up. A lot of figures these days feels like can't move the leg all the way up. Very weird. Can't go back too much. Knee is just the joint. I don't think there's any spin or pivot there, but there is with the ankle a little bit, and it is on a hinge to kind of go up and down, although not a ton. So what this attire is kind of like 1996 about. He was actually an ECW first. So that's why it kind of explains the older mask here. Probably you might know Juventud more with like the horns on his mask that he would get later in WCW when he would jump over there. Then you'd know him from like the video games and stuff like WCW Revenge, playable in that, with again his more known moves that he would kind of develop there. The 450 splash and the Hoovy driver, which is like a Michinoku driver basically. So I would want a WCW Juventud if they could get to that later, which is why I'm checking this out here. But I do have a little bit of an ECW collection, so this would kind of sneak in there and just kind of make like, hey, just a little bonus ECW wrestler Juventud Guerrera here. He just has kind of simple tights that he would have had at the time. We got purple with white outline. He did have kick pads back then, but I think he had more colored boots, like maybe red boots, so maybe not super accurate there, but I mean, missing a few details. I think he usually had like some kind of wrist tape or wrist bands, maybe a necklace or something. The box shows him with like 2 holes for the mask, but the figure just has 1, but that is actually correct with the 1 hole for the nose. Of course, you can kind of see the nose up in there, but it's just red of the mask. They didn't take the time to put that 1 tiny dot of paint up there, so not a big deal for me. But it has his mask colorings right and everything. Kind of the same mask as his father he had before him. Here again on the box art though, we got like gloves, but I couldn't find a picture they really had gloves. I feel like this picture is probably some kind of model or something, like a render image. I don't think they would have had this high of a quality photo of Juventud way back then in 1996. An HD photo? Probably not. So I think this is some kind of recreation with the mask on somebody else's body, kind of demonstrating him of the time. So maybe a detail here and there missing, but the price point is pretty good for these. I mean, they're not like all decked out or anything, but it is, if you want a figure of this wrestler, not a whole lot of other options. And it's more on the affordable level versus a lot of these other companies that are starting to do wrestling figures and they want to charge, you know, $50 or something because they're just starting out. They got to mold all these new pieces. You know, WWE reusing pieces with their Mattel figures, and they're able to make the figures cheaper, kind of mass produce. These are probably smaller quantity and they're having to make these new heads and parts and everything, so it's a pretty good deal. And even like on sale I got Juventud here. Checking out the size, looks like he's probably going to match a lot of good like WCW figures of the time. He's a little shorter, Possibly a little too short because he is more closer to like Rey Mysterio's size, which would have been probably a little less tall than him. So maybe he's undersized, which is certainly better than being way too tall for him. I think he slips in there pretty decently amongst figures that you might be displaying it with, you know, like competitors he would face at the time. So not an attire from like his specific WCW run or when he was like WCW Cruiserweight Champion or anything like that. A little earlier, but very close, and certainly an attire he used in ECW. So these have pretty decent articulation. They're not like basic articulation of like the WWE ones. There's elite style elements, maybe just missing a few points here and there. But I feel like this is about the right range, that you have all the posing, just not like the expense of it. So that is pretty smart in that way. I think they just need to do attires that people are going to be way more familiar with in a wider range. So hoping we get Juventud again with his more WCW attire. And I just wanted to check out these figures, just how they feel and stuff, because I'm going to be getting an Ultimo Dragon figure from them that I'm going to be really excited about. That's one of my favorites, and they feel great. It doesn't feel like a collector figure that's like cheap. Very solid and still a good range of motion. And the details are where they need to be. I mean, we got some simple areas, but then the mask goes all out. So he's going to fit in with a lot of my other scale and time period figures of this kind of 90s time. And if that's the kind of time period you like, you might want to get subscribed here and check out the other playlist of videos. And I'll definitely want to open up that Ultimo Dragon when it comes out here, so be on the lookout for that one. Plenty more luchadors they could do as well. So hopefully I will get to see you in the next video.